And now we can jump into some other interesting topics. So this is our other news section. And the first one I wanted to talk about was a new monitor coming out from LG that is amazing, but really confusing. So this is something we've known about for a decent amount of time, but Adorama, I think I'm pronouncing that right, the digital camera store, they actually have it available for sale, and it's like a pre-order thing, but they're not entirely clear about like how much of a pre-order it is, but they do say they will charge you when it ships, and it's supposed to ship from the manufacturer, so nobody else has it listed yet. But this is the beautifully named, by the way, LG 38WN95C-38. So really easy to say monitor name. Very proud of them. It is not part of the Ultra Gear lineup, which is what confuses me, because we already have a 38-inch Ultra Gear monitor that is running at, I think it's 144 FPS. Let me look that one up, actually. You remember how they have the Ultra Gear 38-inch, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen much on it, but yeah, so it's running at 144 hertz, 175 hertz overclockable, and it's running their Nano IPS. It's running G-Sync, not FreeSync, but G-Sync specific, which maybe is the difference here. And I'll get into what makes this monitor special versus the Ultra Gear, which is the 38GL950G-B, and that one is also HDR 400 certified. So this new monitor, the 38WN95C-38, is using the same, I think it's an identical panel. It's using their Nano IPS technology, so it has a 1 millisecond response time. It's the best response time you're getting out of IPS, basically. It's been measured to not quite be 1 millisecond, but it's easy for monitor companies to claim whatever they want. It's 144 hertz, also seems to be overclockable to like 170, 175 range. I'm sure your mileage may vary on that some, like most overclockable monitors, as well as there's bandwidth limitations and stuff. It's a resolution of 3840 by 1600, and it is G-Sync compatible, which means it is FreeSync, meaning it'll work on AMD displays, AMD GPUs, as well as Intel GPUs if they support it. And so that right there is one of the big differences versus the Ultra Gear. So I thought that was really cool to see G-Sync compatible FreeSync on a monitor like this. Really, like, that's been a big restriction for me, is I don't want to buy any G-Sync specific monitor because I don't want to have to replace it if I get a new GPU, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and your monitor, your monitor is the 34-inch monoprice one, right? Is that
Yeah.
FreeSync or G-Sync?
It's FreeSync.
Yeah, so that's also FreeSync. So, and is that just the 75 hertz or is that 100? I think it's 100, right?
It's 100 hertz, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. You see, so the monitor I'm using is actually, well, I'll get to that in a second. So, and then the biggest difference here, aside from being FreeSync instead of G-Sync, is, but again, G-Sync compatible means it will automatically be detected, and you can turn on G-Sync with a flip of a switch, or automatically in some cases with NVIDIA GPUs, versus regular FreeSync monitors, which aren't certified with NVIDIA, so you have to go through a couple extra steps to enable it, even though it pretty much always works. But this also meets the HDR 600 certification from the VESA group. Now, 600 is not the best of the best, right? 1000 is the best right now. But that's a lot better than the HDR 400 VESA certification that the Ultra Gear has.
Yeah. It still amazes me that PC monitors are having such a hard time getting 1000 hertz consistently, whereas TVs, it's like that's just already normal.
Yeah, except for OLEDs, of course. OLEDs are still
Yeah.
in the 6 to
But
800 range.
OLEDs don't need it as much, like to achieve the contrast at least.
Yeah, well, because they can get dimmer.
Yeah.
Because they can go down to literally nothing or very slightly
Yeah.
above it if needed. So
But
yeah.
I'm just like, it's just so weird that, like, you know, like a fairly shitty TV can hit 1000 hertz, whereas like really expensive
Nits, you mean,
monitors
right?
can't. Or yes,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
really like expensive monitors are
Yeah,
having
you have
hard
to like
times.
spend a serious amount of cash to get a
Yeah, and like
production monitor.
monitors have always been to me like such a weird thing price wise, where it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you can get, you know, a $400 TV that looks better than an $800 monitor.
You know, so I think there's a couple reasons for that. Is one, monitors are more dense. So if you get a smaller package, right, those pixels are all smaller if it's the same resolution, and you don't have as much lighting, like you don't have as big of a backlight and stuff like that. But You know,
But
like
you
I'm
don't see the cost issue applying to phones in the same way, and phones are
this
that
is true.
problem amplified.
So you know what I think the biggest thing is and not even in specific to the 38 inch, but it's even more so true for that kind of weird form factor, is there's more competition in monitors. And so you sell less of them, right? So, competition promotes the best product for the best price in theory. When you have like, okay, it's pretty obvious if you have a fairly lower budget for a good TV, you buy a TCL. If you have a decent budget, you might go with like a Sony or a Samsung. If you have a great budget, you go up to a Sony or LG OLED. And there's not a lot of there's options, but not a million options the way monitors where you can scroll through 27-inch monitors for hours online. There's so many of them.
Yeah, but let's be real, it's not like there's a lot of people actually making the panels for monitors.
This is true, yeah. And so I guess I'm comfortable with the crazy weird pricing for something like a 38 inch that's not going to sell a lot. Mostly people buy
Yeah, that
34s.
that
Yeah,
stuff makes more sense. I mean, ultra wides in general make a lot more sense, but
yeah,
like
yeah,
the fact that like you can't even get like a 27-inch 1000 nit monitor for like a reasonable price, whereas you
yeah.
can get a fucking 55-inch 1000 nit TV for
Yeah,
cheaper.
yeah. I feel like you should be able to get like a 27-inch, like 100 hertz, free sync 1000 nit monitor for like $700, $600. Because I mean, you can get like a 50-inch TV for like 450. That's 1,000 nits. Dolby
And
Vision
for
certified.
700 nowadays, you could probably get a 120 hertz 55-inch TV.
Yeah, yeah, probably because they're starting to become more of a thing. So
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it is weird, and I'm totally okay with it for the weird monitors, like you said as well. But
yeah.
I don't know. What I will say is like I'm definitely heavily considering this as an upgrade versus my XR382 CQK and a bunch more letters Acer monitor that I have, which is a 38-inch 3840 by 1600, but it's only 75 hertz. It is FreeSync, but it's a really narrow range of 40 to 75, and it doesn't seem to work on NVIDIA GPUs. It just goes black and/or flashes. Really weird, but it does work on AMD GPUs, so I don't know, kind of weird. Because I know there's some people that say that, well, if it works on an AMD, it's going to work on an NVIDIA. That's not my experience. But it's also only HDR, but doesn't actually have like an HDR 400 certification. So going all the way up to a HDR 600 could be a big deal to me.
Mhm.
So people that have been holding out for a really good PC monitor probably should look into this, and this might actually have better color accuracy than the current Ultra Gear. It might be tuned better. And the funny thing is, this is $200 cheaper than the current Ultra Gear, even though it's HDR 600 and FreeSync. But of course, that's because NVIDIA charges for their G-Sync module.
Yeah.
um, but I don't know yet if I really want to spend that kind of money on this. When I have
Also,
something
why
similar.
is it that LG's TV division can come up with shorter names than their fucking monitor division?
Oh, I don't understand monitors at all. I think it's a meme at this point in like internally for the companies. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't even whoa. Something just caused me to drop a lot of frames. Sorry about that, anybody that was watching. um like they're fine now, but that was weird. So yeah, so like my monitor's full name is XR382CQK BMIJQPHUZX. And I agree with you. I don't understand why they do that. It's crazy. But
Yeah, whereas like if you look at like LG's TVs, for example,
yeah,
if it wasn't for the fact that they put OLED in the model number, it would be 55 for the size, B9 for the fact that it's the B9, and then PUA, I don't know what that stands for. But it's like
it's the C9,
55
yeah.
B9
Or
PUA
B9, yeah.
makes a lot more sense than fucking WNN or 38 WN95C.
Yeah, like I don't even know where they're getting this 9.5 from. It's not like it's W like 38 width and then like they could use H for hertz and then like 144 or something. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make any logical sense. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, but it's a cool monitor. So anybody that's considering buying a 38-inch monitor should most definitely look into this instead of trying to buy one from Acer or the Ultra Gear. This is definitely a better option, and I'm glad I didn't buy the Ultra Gear because I almost did when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next topic is an interesting one. So The NVIDIA RTX 3080, and potentially the cooler design for a lot of the higher end 30 series was leaked, and we actually got a whole bunch of 3D renders of it as well as real pictures that look like they're pretty legit. This does come from WCCF Tech as well as other sources talked about it. Take it with a grain of salt, but it definitely looks like it's well enough. It's a high quality enough picture. It was definitely something I would say that existed at some point.
Yeah, so the video that I would recommend people look at is the 3090 and 3080 leak video from Moore's Law is Dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That YouTube channel does a pretty good job at getting info on PC hardware. In fact, they've been the source that a lot of other websites have mentioned for other PC
Yeah.
hardware leaks. And he did like a 10-minute video on it as well as his like podcast episode. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'd recommend that one personally.
Yeah. It was a good video. He does a lot of good videos actually. I really like his
Yeah.
content for sure. But it looks like it could actually have really good cooling capacity for a 2-slot card. It's definitely a very unique and interesting design. I'll of course have images up on the screen of that for you guys. It's I don't know. It's unique. I think it could look good in a system, but we've got to wait and see till it actually comes out. Some people hate the design, but I personally think it looks pretty great. But then again, I don't like the PS5 design. I do like the Cybertruck design, so maybe I just like weird things. I don't know.
No,
um,
because if you liked weird things, you'd like the PS5 design because it is weird.
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what maybe industrial look. I don't know.
You also have
Um,
bad taste in some cases.
no, I don't. It was a terrible movie. So I'm still really mad that they don't support blower cards on the reference ones because there are blower models made by like Asus and stuff like that of the 20 series after the fact, but they're cheaper actually too, but they're not premium looking blowing cards, and that's something that I've always liked. Um, and for like servers, small form factor builds, stuff like that, blower cards can be like a huge deal, and in some cases there are like really small cases that are built around the idea you have a blower card, and you're going to have serious problems if you try and use a regular like 2-fan or 3-fan card in there because it's not going to have anything that helps exhaust that hot air out of the case. And so some of them are designed where the GPU is like its own chamber, sucks in air, blows out air. The PSU is like its own chamber, in air, out air. And I guess my thought is obviously for servers and stuff like that, it doesn't matter if it's an Asus design one that's gray or something like that. Or you can actually see my blower 2060 in here. You can barely see it because my mic's blocking it. But, that's the 2060 I got. And I got a blower because it's right up against the glass, which is another more common thing we're seeing. And blower cards do a lot better job right up against the glass. Still don't like them being right up against the glass anyway. But it was nice
So,
having a premium blower card.
so something to ask about that. So one of the things as NVIDIA pushed more into making, or not making, obviously they make their own GPUs.
Yeah.
That's the point. But selling their own GPUs that were like built by NVIDIA, because they sold them specifically through Best Buy for a while, so they didn't gain a lot of traction. And
Yeah.
then eventually they started selling them properly through all channels, and they got a lot of criticism for competing with their board partners.
Yes. Yes.
Now, so we run into the issue of, do they make just blower, if we say want to have them make like high-end blower cards again, do
Mm-hmm.
we have them just make blower cards, at which point they're just not going to sell as well because not as many people buy those, and so
Yeah.
therefore like they just lose business? Or do we have them have, especially for something like this, presumably they wouldn't go with a design like this that's so unique and so abnormal,
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't feel like there was a need to do something crazy for cooling capacity. And so
Yeah.
even if they can make a blower card work, but just maybe it won't perform as well, it won't hit as high of clocks. The issue that we run into is, if they were then releasing a card like this and a blower card, then they'd be even further cannibalizing the board partner market and further competing with board partners, instead of just expecting board partners to, if they want, if there is any kind of demand for nicer looking blower cards, why don't board partners make them?
Um.
They're
So
essentially leaving a market completely to board partners, and board
yeah. So
partners
I
just don't care.
I have a
So
couple
clearly there's not
things.
much of a market.
Yeah. So I have a couple things to add in there. So So the first thing would be that I think the solution is for them to be the ones that continue to manufacture blower cards. And the reason for that is I feel like they could make just a blower card, and that's what they sell. So they're not really doing that much cannibalizing the regular industry because people won't buy it from them unless they want a blower card. We kind of saw that with the 10 series, although they did such a good job with the looks that people did buy them. But so there's a couple solutions I see to that. So first, they can make just a blower card, and that is the cooler design they use for the ones that they sell for server and data center applications as well. For ones that need a fan, obviously there's the ones that are fanless, all heat sink, like the Tesla GPUs and some of the Quadros and stuff, where they don't even have display outputs. But that's one option that I see. And then the other side of things is that's maybe potentially a good thing that Nvidia tends to charge the Nvidia cooler tax, because then if you can save $150 by going with board partners, you're less likely to be cannibalizing the board partners. Which I think is something we've talked about back when the 20 series launched, actually, was
Yeah.
that they're charging more for it, and then that way they're not ruining the board partners. I think potentially the solution here would be to make the blower card, and then instead of charging like $150 or $200 more for it, their version versus the AIB version, charge like $50 more. So then there's that price increase and the fact that it's a blower, which isn't going to cool as good in most situations as a dual or triple axial fan design, and it costs more. So you're not going to cannibalize as much, but you still have the option for a really nice blower card for those that need it, as well as server applications. But there's some
But
issues there
again, like
too.
for me, it's just like if there was enough of a market for them to care about that, then a board partner would do it.
Yeah, the board partners just make ugly ones. Um, you're right; they don't sell as well because they're not as quiet and they don't cool as well. I'm just a fan of them because I
Yeah.
throw
I
old
just
GPUs in a server. I've got GPUs up against glass.
yeah.
So that's me, I guess. Maybe that's just my fault.
Mhm.
But that's just kind of my thoughts. Is I like blower cards, and like this one in here is ugly, and obviously this guest system is going in another case anyway. But for some people, they're just, I know there's a niche crowd that's very
Yeah.
disappointed to not
And it's
have
like
them.
even with like, pretty basic plastic designs, like I feel like if board partners just wanted to put in a little bit of effort, they could probably make at least better looking cards.
Yeah. Instead of
So it's
just
just
literally
like
a square.
there really must not be that much of a market for them. Otherwise, they'd put like a minuscule amount of effort into them.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. So that's why they moved away from it.
And it's like, when you look at like the really small cases, for example, that would need a blower card,
Hmm.
um, most of those you're not looking at the GPU, so the looks don't matter.
This is true. Yeah, and I guess to add to your thoughts on that a little more too is, you know, most people want most people are going to try and find a solution with nicer cards anyway. So if they have a case that has poor airflow, they oftentimes will still choose the dual axial card because it looks
Hello?
better. So one of the other things too was, speaking of the kind of Nvidia tax, there was the $150 the estimate $150 is the estimated cost to Nvidia for the cooler, which would make sense considering how unique it is, and it's probably going to have like 100 screws, like the current one again, and that's not an exaggeration. So that's interesting. It means the Nvidia tax is probably going to be $150 to $200 this time around. I don't know how you feel about that. It helps not cannibalize, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, really, it comes down to performance for me. If it
Yeah,
does a good job of staying cool and quiet, I think it's fine to have that as an option in the market. And, again, like you can buy cheaper GPUs elsewhere. You don't
yeah,
have to buy the NVIDIA one.
this is true. Yeah,
And so I think that's perfectly fine. We already see people spend a lot of money on higher cooling system GPUs.
yeah,
So NVIDIA deciding to go with that as their option is a-okay with me.
yeah. I guess it makes sense then at that point. I'm not
And in fact, of all the
necessarily.
cards, it makes sense for NVIDIA to focus on what they're going to sell. I think that them focusing on the higher end ones makes sense. Their card should be, in my opinion, um, like the like this is what the card can perform at cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus the unique design, some people might want to go for it for that. The issue that I have sometimes with the Nvidia tax being put in place is actually not it's the water cooling community, which obviously are not usually strapped for cash, but I feel like that card is generally the best card to water cool because it's using the reference PCB and is sometimes easiest to get a hold of stock wise and stuff like that. And so it does kind of suck in some ways for water coolers when they need to spend an extra $100 to $200 on a card just to get the reference PCB, so they can be one of the first to also get the like reference designed water block for it.
So I agree it does kind of suck, but I don't think that that's something Nvidia should really prioritize at all.
Agreed. Well, and then on top of that, there are water blocks that come out at later points in times for AIB cards. So
Mhm.
it's like, unless you're really in a rush to do it, then, because like I plan to get one or two of the 3000 series or RDNA 2 GPUs this year, but the plan is to do that like in the realm of end of the year. So it'll be after all the water blocks and stuff have come out, all the kinks are worked out of it, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. It's interesting, but we'll just have to see. Like, I hope the performance is good. I hope the ray tracing is good, and I hope AMD is competitive this time around.
Yeah, hopefully with the leaks and rumors that have been coming out, it sounds like they will be not like at the highest end,
Yeah.
but it sounds like they'll have cards that are better than the current 2080 Ti.
Yes. Yes. That's what it
And
looks like.
so it'll come down to just if they can be price competitive. Because they don't need the best card. The best card is nice to have from a marketing perspective, and that's why Nvidia pushes so hard for it.
Yeah.
But they don't sell very many.
Yeah. No, that's totally true.
It's
They
not a
don't,
big
and sometimes they
market.
come out with the best one later for that reason too.
Yeah,
They
it's
wait for
literally
better bidding.
just to have the we can say we are the best. And
Yeah.
so,
And I mean,
like
enthusiasts appreciate that, of course.
yeah, but again, not really that big of a market.
Yeah.
Um, and so like when we're looking at this, it's like if they can have the mid-tier GPUs be much better than Nvidia's, then it doesn't fucking matter if the high ends aren't. They're gonna make way more money that way than they would from the high ends anyway.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's
So,
true.
and based on what we're seeing from both the Xbox and the PlayStation, it seems like RDNA 2 is fucking good. So,
That's what it looks like. Yeah. And AMD has kind of, along with like Lisa herself, have kind of hinted at that. So
yeah.
hopefully it ends up being the case. So something I wanted to touch base on here that was an interesting piece of news to me was the fact that Jim Keller has resigned from Intel. Now, first I'll say that that is not uncommon for him to work for a place a couple of years and resign. So Daniel and I actually discussed this a little bit ahead of time. He did say resigned for personal reasons, but he has said that before when leaving AMD, for example, and other places. He kind of bounces around. And for those that don't know who he is, he's a world-known CPU architect. He does amazing work, and coincidentally, every time he works for a company, they seem to be the one that's winning shortly after. So we'll see. AMD came swinging real hard just a couple years after Jim resigned from there. So that was interesting. And he's been responsible for a lot of what we've seen in Ryzen, a lot of that architecture there. So we'll see what he does. Maybe he's helping out with Foveros from Intel. He might have been a big pusher for that. I don't think we'll ever really know exactly what he worked on because a lot of that's protected. But it's an interesting piece of news. It might mean that Intel has something really good coming around the corner. And by around the corner, I mean a year or two. The manufacturing of these takes a long time.
Mhm.
And then I also wanted to add in here that he is actually on the Artificial Intelligence podcast this week. I have not listened to it yet, unfortunately. I am going to very soon. Very excited for that. For those that don't know, I'll put a link in the description for that. The Artificial Intelligence podcast is just a wonderful, wonderful podcast. I can't stop listening to it. And so I would highly recommend you go check it out and see what it's like. Um, yeah, but that's
Yeah, and
the
he will be still consulting with Intel for 6 months exclusively.
yeah, which
So it's
definitely
not like he's just as of today just like on the spot just like okay, bye Intel, have fun.
yeah,
It's he's stepping back from his role, and for whatever Intel has still going on with whatever he was working on, he is
yep.
still giving feedback.
It sounds like it's kind of like he's overseeing it still. Yeah,
Yeah, so like
So,
my assumption is like the core engineering that he was working on is done, and
mhm.
so he's just bouncing out, and then he's just there for Intel if they need it, as far as ensuring that as they plan out how they're going to manufacture what he engineered, he can still assist with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what
So
it seems like. So we'll see what happens. I am curious if Intel is going to come swinging hard on the high end, or if it's just going to be like a lot of really mobile focused stuff where we have laptops that finally are like almost like phones where you can leave them on all the time and stuff that aren't having to use ARM chips, can still be running the x86 architecture, which is better on Windows, especially right now. Over time, ARM will get better for Windows, but it's still emulation of a lot of x86 stuff, and it's
yeah,
nice to have something native. So maybe Foveros is going to make a big difference in that. Potentially high-end gaming laptops or something too. We'll see. But I'm just curious how much of a difference Intel's new architectures and stuff are going to make on high-end desktop, gaming level desktop, like and like workstations, and especially servers. Because in my opinion, while Intel is definitely hurting in the consumer space, they're hurting really bad in the server space in terms of performance. I don't necessarily mean market share, although that is happening. It's being taken, but I'm mostly just talking here like if you're making a server, unless for some reason you have some stupid piece of software that requires Intel, you go with Epic right now. You just do. So it'll be interesting to see
yeah,
how
and like
Intel competes.
the server market share takes a lot longer to change.
Yes, yes, it does. Yeah, servers. I mean, some companies buy servers and keep them 10 years.
Yeah,
But it like for the time being, new servers being put in place are running Epic very heavily because unless there's contracts or unless there's software that's lying to you saying it doesn't work on AMD, then it's AMD
mhm,
all around right now. Better, more PCI Express lanes, more bandwidth, more cores, lower price, and just potentially, we don't know a ton about the longevity, but probably similar longevity in terms
yeah.
of reliability. So yeah, so this next one was really interesting. You're the one that did all the research on this, so I'll let you chat about it.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of rumors for a while that Apple was working on ARM chips that would be used in their Mac lineup of hardware.
Yeah.
Apple obviously already makes their own, or at least designs their own ARM chips for iPhone, and they
Mm-hmm.
perform very well. Very, very well. They're
Yeah.
the best mobile chips out. And in many cases of obviously, I don't really like comparing benchmarks of like ARM versus x86 because they're
Yeah.
not really representative of anything.
Yeah.
But they benchmark very well too.
Mm.
And so this has been kind of expected, but we've been wondering when it's going to happen. And
Yeah, we've been talking about this for like a year or something now.
yeah,
Rumors about it. Yeah.
and it sounds like at WWDC, which is coming up not too far away, Apple is going to announce the first ARM chips for Mac. Um, Now, for me, what I see as the most likely scenario with this is that they're going to announce it this year, and not release it until next year. And there's a couple reasons for that.
Yeah.
One, Mac apps that are made for x86, even if Apple builds some compatibility layer, are not like the
Or
performance
like
apps aren't going to
emulation.
run well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, like, we've seen now how building the right compatibility layer and building the right tools can make it so that even shitty ARM chips can do very well at running things that people did not think they could run on ARM. The
Yeah.
best example of that is NVIDIA's ARM chips and the Shield, which they got Battlefield running on, and
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. It's just interesting programming you have to do. And I mean, for a desktop compute space, especially with Windows, like x86 makes sense, but
Mhm,
I want to see I in some ways I feel like Apple hasn't been leveraging what they do on their other platforms with Mac quite as much, and I'd like to see that. And by that I mean, you know, doing something really custom and special that differentiates them from other people. And the
mhm.
MacBooks in particular, I mean, they've been very premium. In fact, I still think some of the best looking machines out there.
Yeah.
But other than the fact that they run Mac OS, what really separates them? x86 processor, standard cooling system, big battery,
Mhm.
SSDs. I mean, yeah, sure, they offered bigger SSDs than other people. the touch bar, I guess, but I mean, Windows computers are doing similar things. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see them kind of leverage that. Hey, that's right, we're a closed system. So if we want to make Mac OS an ARM design system, we can just do that.
Yeah. Um, so I think that's what's going to happen is they're going to announce it this year and launch it next year. The other
Hmm.
big thing is that I just don't see them launching this before USB 4.
I
Because
agree.
Apple was the company, really the company to push Thunderbolt. Like, yes, you saw it in other laptops here and there before Apple had implemented
Yeah.
it, but it was like a port that nobody really used. There would be like a couple accessories here and there.
Yep.
And then Apple said, hey, this port's really good. We're going to use it as the port on our laptops.
Right.
That's the only port. Um, and so for them to release an ARM-based laptop right now before USB 4, which for those that don't know, USB 4 is built on the architecture of Thunderbolt 3.
Yeah. So
And
it does
so
use PCIe, right?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not even
Um,
just like similar. It kind of just is.
it's literally like Thunderbolt 3 products will work on USB 4.
Yeah.
So if Apple implements a laptop with ARM this year, or at least whenever before USB 4 is launching,
Yeah.
they would have to use normal USB because they can't use Thunderbolt on ARM right now. Like Intel does not allow that.
Right.
And so they would have to then go to USB Type A, which would mean all of the accessories they've been pushing for the last several years would not work. Um, Apple does a lot
Yeah.
of
They
weird
wouldn't do
things with
that.
ports. That's not the type of move Apple would do. The thing Apple does with ports is they drop ports they don't like anymore for the ports they want to see the future of ports being used for.
Yeah.
Um, Apple was a key reason that we got USB to be adopted as it was. Like Intel, in fact, for those that don't know, Intel made USB,
Mm-hmm.
just like Intel made Thunderbolt. But it wasn't until other companies adopted USB, a big part of that was Apple, that it became a bigger thing. And same thing with Thunderbolt. Intel made it, Apple adopted it at a greater level than any other company did, and then it became more mainstream, and now it's just being rolled into the USB standard.
Again,
Um,
it's like because they can, because
yeah.
they have so much control over their platform.
Oh yeah. No other company could say, like, Asus couldn't drop like all of their laptops have them drop all other ports besides Thunderbolt, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. We'll buy that still." They would just be
No.
like, "Okay, we're gonna go buy the Dell or we're gonna go buy the HP laptop. Fuck you."
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I think that this is gonna be the big product that gets USB 4 to be like widely adopted quickly.
Which I would like to see the back of future motherboards have, 6 or 8 or 12 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like the eventual future to be with, next generation Threadripper or whatever, right?
Mhm.
I mean, some compatibility is still going to be important for old accessories on desktops, but I just mean that in general, I'd like to see the industry go that way. I'd like to see laptops start to move that direction even more, even sooner, because of the fact that we have phones, tablets, and some laptops that have been using it for charging and everything. We have more cables out there now for it,
Mhm.
and I just want them to do it with the iPhone too, personally. But yeah, but
Yeah, I don't think until USB 4, I don't think we're going to see Apple change over to Type C. Like I know a lot of people
yeah,
have been
I
hoping
agree.
for that. I just think that they're going to wait for that. It just makes more sense.
Yes, either that or portless.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I'm glad to see them pushing ARM. Um, I just there's ups and downs to it, of course, but I think they're one of the places that can do it. I don't think Windows will ever really move away from it, but they will have good enough emulation and stuff to have a laptop that currently the laptops that are like all day laptops that are always connected. They're not just you put them in sleep mode, but like you put it in sleep mode and it's like a smartphone where it's still updating your emails and everything. Those are
Mhm.
all ARM based right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other really nice thing about Apple switching over to ARM base for their Macs is that it makes the idea of one code base for iPhone, iPad, and Mac
Yeah.
so much easier. And that is something that Apple will really have going for them for developers. Is if you're wanting to develop an app and you are just getting into programming,
Mm-hmm.
Well, if with one code base you can make an app that more easily scales between a phone, a tablet, and eventually a foldable that will be your phone and tablet and your computer,
Yeah,
that's
that's a
just
good point.
so nice for new
And
developers. It's
smart
like,
devices too, like a watch, even.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's already been one advantage that Apple's had with the development of apps, and why we've seen Apple pretty consistently get apps before Android is because it's easier to develop for a small number of devices.
Yeah.
If you're developing for just phones, for example, it's really easy to develop for the number of iPhones that are currently still getting updates compared to the number of Android phones that are still getting
Yes.
updates.
Yes.
And that's despite the fact that Android phones only get updates for 2 years, whereas iPhones get updates for 5 because it's just Apple releasing iPhones.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So
Um,
they're it's a good push for them, I think, and it's also going to make it harder for Windows to compete in
oh
that
yeah,
realm. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Unless Microsoft's been the first to push ARM based like laptops, but of
They
course
just
they're
need to
still
figure out how to
emulating.
do it well.
Yeah, they need to get the emulation needs to get better of x86, or there needs to be more x80 or ARM available apps, which some of them are already for Windows, but like they would need an ARM version of Office, an ARM version of every web browser, and then that starts to make it complicated of how do you know which version to use, uh,
Well, and that's where like Microsoft just needs to do a better job of getting developers to want to support their store. Because if
yes,
you get your store to support proper native x86 apps and ARM apps, then that makes that easier. Like let's look at Xbox. For Series X, they're talking about smart delivery, which is a fancy marketing term for, if you have a Series X, you get the Series X version of the game downloaded. If you download it on your Xbox One X, you get the One X version. If you download it on your One
yeah,
S, you get the One S version. So they have the marketing terminology for that already there, and already something that they're pushing. And so if they can bring that to Windows and have it so that no matter which device you're using that's running Windows, you get the app most optimized for that with one click. You don't have
yep,
to think about it. That's what you need. But
yeah, agreed, yeah, yeah.
they need to find a way to get developers to want to put their apps on their store, because right now most developers hate the Windows Store.
Which, to be honest, is one of the reasons Windows Phone doesn't exist now. I
Yeah.
mean, like one of the huge reasons, realistically, because Windows Phone could have done better on the looks and stuff, but that can all improve. But if the apps aren't there, the apps aren't there.
Yeah.
Their store has just not been great, and even as an enthusiast, I'm not the happiest with their store either. Not just the user experience of like searching for stuff, just not working and stuff, and like searching for Minecraft dungeons didn't bring up any results for it and stuff like that. But also to add to it, I personally, and this is an enthusiast thing, don't like how you can't have like software link up with the Windows Store games and stuff like that and Windows Store apps as easily because you can't find the executable files. They hide them. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's where like they need to have it so that the Windows Store can also essentially offer just straight up standard ass desktop apps, and it doesn't need to be the weird Windows 10 app.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
again comes down to the smart delivery, where it's like, if a developer wants to offer a proper desktop app, a Windows Store app, and an ARM app, then
Yes.
based on the device, it should just know, like, if you're using a low end laptop, it should download the Windows 10 app first. If you're using a desktop, it should download or a high end laptop, it should just download that.
Yep. Yep.
um they need to figure out how they do that, because like I feel like just that alone would get developers a little more on board, but they
Yeah.
still need to do more to get developers on than just that. But I think that that would be a good start.
It would be a good start, yeah, because then you'd have more developers that are able to port their stuff over to it and just package it and put it in there. And then also, like you said, having the ability where you could have the store be kind of dynamic, where if you have an ARM machine, it only searches for apps that are ARM native or good x86 emulation.
Yeah.
You won't find the other things that you would find via like a web browser on there. But if you search for that on an x86 machine, then it will find those x86 apps and also won't find apps that are ARM only, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would be a good solution. But of course, the core thing with Windows is like still keeping the functionality of being able to use a browser to go download whatever you want, be able to access everything on your system as a like a prosumer enthusiast, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and that's where, like, again, I think it's important for them to get the Windows Store to support normal desktop apps rather than
Mm-hmm.
trying to force apps through the Windows 10 app format.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Uh huh.
Because as long as they have, uh, you have to use that Windows 10 app format, a lot of companies are just not going to want to give a shit because they don't
Yeah,
want to
because
make
for a
apps like
lot of
that.
it's disgusting in a lot of ways, and I mean
Yeah.
some apps
Whereas,
work
like,
great for it, but
if I could, upon setting up my computer, go onto the Windows Store to download Discord and have it update that way,
yeah, and
that'd be
Firefox
dope.
and whatever else, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, web browsers, I'd expect they'll be a little less happy
Yeah,
to
but you get kind
support.
of what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
And they
like
don't
if
even have to. They also would need to make it so that the app doesn't have to update through the store. It can just be an installation point, and then the app can still update itself too.
yeah,
So if they need to do that, if they need to push it out themselves, where Discord does their own update, they can. Or if you need to defer the update, you can, because there are one of the reasons to do a regular desktop app is if you don't want to update, it doesn't auto update through the store like the
yeah.
store apps do. So there's some work to be done there, but I think you're right. That could be a big push for both people and developers to want to use the store.
Mhm.
Yeah. On this next topic, we should probably do because this is a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, so we'll bust through the rest of these pretty quick.
Yeah.
So the next thing is we're going to talk about Starship. So Elon Musk has said that Starship is now SpaceX's top priority.
Yeah.
Um, so really, like, this is not at all surprising. So what happened was they got their commercial crew launch. Now that that has been successful, and they know that they'll have contracts for commercial crew,
Yeah, they can just
um,
start doing that.
yeah, they are now going to start focusing on Starship. Now, this makes even more sense after seeing what Bridenstine, which is the current head of NASA, has said about the plans for the moon base.
Uh-huh.
So we already knew that SpaceX was bidding Starship for being a moon lander,
Yeah, yeah.
and what NASA has said now is that what they want to do for delivering cargo to the moon base is set a price model of cost per ton, and then let
Mm.
commercial partners figure out how to achieve that and how to just get the stuff there, and then let them handle it.
Yeah,
Which
that
makes
makes sense.
sense. I mean, if you're shipping cargo, you're like, I'm going to set a price if when you're talking tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, it's I'm going to set the price. You guys get the stuff there.
Right. Yeah, I think that
Um,
makes sense. I think it's a good business model.
yeah. And so when it comes to SpaceX, it's like, okay, Starship would be how they would achieve that. And so if you're talking A, hundreds of millions of dollars in potential business, B, getting people off Earth, which is a core fundamental aspect of SpaceX's goals.
Yeah.
If you can do both of those in one ship, yeah, of course that's your priority.
It just makes
Um,
it's like the why it wouldn't make sense if it wasn't.
yeah, and then in addition to that, the moon specific variant of the Starship actually needs less work than other starships. You don't need heat shields, you don't need flaps. The only thing
Mm.
specific to the Starship that you need is forward thrusters to stabilize in the wind. However, that's also not something that you would just only use for the moon. That's something you would use for Mars. That's something you would use
Why
for
don't they
Earth
need heat shielding?
because there's no atmosphere. You don't have a heat issue when you're landing on the
But what
moon.
if they bring it back to Earth? Isn't that the goal?
That's not no, no, no. So what SpaceX has said about the moon specific version of the Starship is
Yeah.
so I guess let me explain something with the Artemis program in general is
Yeah.
that what NASA wants to do is have so you know how they want to have the like a new space station around the moon, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
Okay, so what they want to do is they want to have landers that just go from the station to the moon and back. That's the
Oh,
point of the
okay.
space station is to make the portion to the moon easier and cheaper.
Okay. That
Um,
no, that makes sense. Yeah.
and so instead of flying a ship from Earth to the moon, you transport the people or cargo to the station, and then you move it to, or at least with the people, you move them to the lander, and you just have the lander operate back and forth. So
Yeah, right.
you would never need that. And then in addition to that, if you're already developing for that aspect, then you can develop for Earth to Moon cargo missions. And one of the things one of the things that you can do in that case is launch from Earth with cargo, just cargo, have it land on the moon, and have it stay on the moon to serve as part of the base.
Oh, right. That makes
So
sense
you
too then. Yeah.
launch ones that have the life support systems for people to live in them, but not
Yeah.
with people on it to send it there. You send it there, a year or two before they would go to the moon. But
Mhm.
then, especially very early on in establishing any kind of permanent presence on the moon, Mars, anything else like that, um, you're either going to have to send drones years in advance to build out the base, which even then you'd have to have drones do a lot of testing to ensure safety. Because
Yep.
if they're assembling it, you need to make sure it's going to be something the humans can breathe in.
Right,
Whereas
right.
you can do all of that testing on Earth for the ships, send the ships there, have the people live in the ships as the bases get built, and then have the humans do the more intricate testing on site,
That makes a ton
on
of
the
sense.
moon,
Yeah.
on Mars.
Okay. Like a
So
temporary base kind of thing or even
correct, yeah.
semi-permanent. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and then SpaceX doesn't need to worry about, um, especially for this moon proposal, they don't need to worry about the return ship because NASA's presumably going to use something else for the initial transporting of people from Earth to the Artemis station.
Right, right. I can't believe we're going to have a station there too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm
Now it
really
sounds like
excited
the
for that.
first manned launch is actually they are originally the plan was that they were going to send the station first.
Mhm.
But now it sounds like just to get boots on the moon faster, just so they can say they did it sooner, they're going to send people first, bring them back, and then send the station.
Interesting.
Personally, as much as I want people on the moon again, I disagree with that decision. It seems like they
Yeah.
are trading long-term costs for current administration to be able to say we got boots on the moon.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
And if the whole point of the Artemis program is sustainability in doing this, then sacrificing a little bit of sustainability to say we did this goes contradictory to the point of the program.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And it
So,
adds a lot of expense.
yeah,
Unnecessary expense, yeah.
yeah,
Interesting. Well, something about SpaceX that I actually wanted to mention here was that just so everybody knows, Starlink's website now has a section you can sign up to be notified. You put in your email address and your zip code, and they'll let you know when testing is potentially available in your area. They're doing private beta first and then open beta later. So this is kind of signing up for being selected for the private beta.
yeah.
So
Apparently, they
yeah.
are already doing more intricate private data at the SpaceX headquarters now.
Yes, I
Um,
saw that. Yeah, yeah, crazy.
yeah, and SpaceX just recently did another Starlink launch. And by recently, I mean we're recording this on, well, it's now June 14th. We were recording this on June 13th. But they did it early in the morning on June 13th.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was 58 Starlink satellites rather than the normal 60. And the reason it was two less is that they were actually doing three small satellites for another company too. Okay, so this one's pretty interesting. We've got I think the name is Bailey Gifford. It's an organization. It's an asset management firm out of Scotland, which is currently the second largest shareholder in Tesla outside of Elon Musk himself.
Hmm.
Um, they have invested $35 million into a new air taxi startup called Lilium. And this is interesting. This company is working on electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
Wow.
And the goal is to get it launching by 2025.
Huh. That would be really cool,
Yeah.
actually.
And this was an early investor in, Bally Gifford was an early investor in Tesla, from my understanding. And so they
So the
seem
future is
to,
here.
they seem to know what they're doing when it comes to investing in tech, very futuristic vehicle companies. Because like
Yeah.
when Tesla was early, like nobody thought electric vehicle. Well, most people thought electric vehicles weren't viable,
Right.
and here we are, where every company is now racing to catch up to Tesla.
Yeah.
And so them dropping this money indicates, I feel like the this company is probably in the best position to achieve these goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
So
That'd be really cool. I'd like to see that.
yeah, apparently the company all in all raised like 240 million in early March,
Wow.
which was, I don't think their first round of investment, but just a recent round.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Huh.
they've certainly got the money to put into trying to get this done. So we'll see how it goes.
I hope it goes well. I'll say that.
Yeah. And then so there was a lot of games announced over the last couple of days. We obviously spent a lot of time on the PlayStation 5 event, but there
Yeah.
was also a PC game show, as well as the Gorilla Collective, which was an indie focused event. Um, Really, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting games, but I feel like the most important one to talk about is Persona 4 Golden. So Persona is a pretty popular franchise. They've pretty much been exclusive to PlayStation for the longest time. And Persona 4 Golden was seen as the best version of Persona 4, which was seen as a very, very good game in that
It was,
franchise.
yeah, it was a widely, like, yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, even with Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, a lot of people I've seen online said that they feel like, well, the gameplay might be better in the newer ones, the character interactions, and just overall the characters were better in 4.
Yeah.
And so seeing Persona 4 Golden, which was only available on the PlayStation Vita, come to
Right.
any other platform is notable. It coming to PC on Steam is extremely notable, and it's only $20.
Exciting. That's really exciting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does have de novo DRM, which a lot of people have been
Mm.
really criticizing the fact that a 12-year-old game last released 8 years ago on a portable console has fucking de novo DRM.
Oh, there's
Like,
no, like, that's just stupid. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
waste of time.
yeah.
But whatever.
And then the last topic of the day is
Well, I had
that,
one more I'm going to interject in here after you're done with this one. Little topic.
oh, okay, Computex 2020 is officially canceled.
I'm sad. I mean,
Yep,
I'm glad, but I'm sad.
yep. Okay,
I'd
go ahead.
like a digital version or something. Come on. But it also probably means we'll have a slower rollout of a lot of PC stuff, which means some of it'll be more polished and it'll be easier because we won't need 3 hours dedicated to Computex coverage. So
I mean, let's be real. We'll find a way to cover 3 hours of every single announcement.
probably, yeah, that's what it'll be. Just a lot more detail about every Computex thing, which actually in some ways I'm okay with. I'm okay with slower rollout so we can do more detail on things. So, last little thing I wanted to add in here, just as a fun little thing, there is now a mod for Half-Life Alyx that is the Silent Hills PT demo that there was for the PlayStation. It'll probably get removed at some point, but I just wanted to note that it exists for those that have Alyx and a VR headset and might want to give it a shot before it's gone.
Yep.
So, well, that's it. I think we're done here. We're just over the 3 hour mark, so that's definitely going to be a long podcast. I'm guessing it's about just under 3 hours for those watching. So got to do some cuts, but hopefully things remain smooth this time. We had some issues with the video last time, so we apologize for that, but we think we have it worked out now. So very cool. Anything else you want to add?
No, not really.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you all in the next one. Should be sometime next week. Awesome.
And it's a good movie.
It is a terrible movie.
Wrong.